welcome to the Indie Author Life Show. I'm your host, MG Hunt, and today I'm here with a rising star in romance, fellow Aussie author Rachel O'Rourke. Yay! All the applause. She's graciously given her time today to chat all things writing, indie author life related, as well as some insights into her body of work. So welcome, Rachel, and
Thank
thank
you for having
you. Oh,
me.
thank you for accepting the invitation to come and chat all things related to your writing life, because I'm really curious about the body of work that you've written. Because looking at I did do a little bit of research on your Goodreads. Your first publication came out last year, is that right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Be My Saving Grace came out last year. So what are we? 2024. Actually,
Yes.
technically it came out 2023.
Yep. Wow.
And it was with a publisher.
Okay. Yeah.
I stepped away from that publisher and re-released it. So that re-release did come out last year in 2024 with a new cover,
Yeah.
came out with an extra chapter. I put in
That's cool.
a additional chapter from the perspective of my other male main character because the book ended and everyone was like, what happens after that?
They wanted more. They
After
wanted
I had done
more.
a massive, it was titled an epilogue at the time, but
Yep.
technically it wasn't an epilogue because it went for like 20,000 words of
Wow.
like just what happens after to these characters and their
Yeah.
evolution, stepping into the world as a couple together. So yeah, they were
Nice.
like, and then so I
They
was
want
like,
more.
well, I'm doing a re-release. I'll give you a little bit more of where they're at now. I added a second chapter into that book.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. And that's the best part, in my opinion, of being self-published is that you get to make the call when it comes to adding things and getting some feedback on what the readers want, and you can give
Mhm.
them that. Give them the
Yeah,
fan service, whatever they
exactly.
want. I mean, not whatever,
Because it
but
wasn't necessarily enough to do like a sequel.
yep.
And I didn't want to break the book up after it had already been published and go,
Mm,
okay, I'm republishing and now there's a part one and a part two. I didn't want to do that either
yep.
because it still, I don't think was enough. And even though people did ask for a sequel, I'm like, if I give you a full sequel, there's going to be like some issues that are going to arise with these characters, and they had already gone through so much.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you
I
mean
didn't
with
want to
that.
do that to them again. In retrospect to because the book deals with mental health, it deals with bipolar disorder. There is always going to be issues that arise. It's inevitable, unfortunately. Medications play up, your body gets used to the medication, you have ups and downs and blips. I
Mm,
didn't want to do it so much to fill in a second book.
yep.
And that's why when I did, here's a second, or not a second, but here's a new chapter.
Mm,
Um, it does address that, there's a issue that arises with medication, and this is how the
mm,
characters fix it. But I didn't have to go into depth so much that it created, another
yep.
few thousand words for the book and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
it's a heavy book to begin with. So
Yep.
yeah.
I think that's a good call. And I think it's important to touch on these things and to normalize talking about it in particular, but to not labor the point of like torturing your characters through all this kind of stuff when they have been through so much. I think a lot of readers just want to see a resolution as well. They want to see a happy ending for
That's
them.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And
Mm,
I think it's also nice. I've had people reach out to me, and this is the thing, you get so many people contacting you, but they don't necessarily leave a review, and you're like, damn, that would have been good. But
yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
parents reach out to me going, my child has bipolar. If this is the story, if they meet
Mm,
someone and can get a happy ending like this, I would forever be so,
mm,
because they fear that then their child's not going to find love or not going to find someone
mm,
who accepts their disorder or can handle the disorder. And
mm.
at the end of the day, we're just all looking for love and acceptance. And
Yeah.
I don't think anyone with a mental disability or mental health issue should be,
Yeah.
outcasted or rejected or because of,
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, the discourse is changing I think in our space in particular, in the indie writing community, I think we're a lot more open-minded about certain things like that. Of course, the rest of society,
Yeah,
definitely. There's some ups and downs with it, but I think talking about it in nuanced ways as well is very helpful for people to see
very much.
representation about certain kinds of lives and neurotypical and neurodivergent ways of life. So
Mm.
I love it. I love that that stuff is being talked about. So
Yeah.
if I could maybe ask you a little bit more about you yourself, and then we'll talk more about the books in particular, I'd love for you to give us a bit of an insight about yourself and tell us a bit about your background, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Of course. So I have three jobs. I'm a
Wow,
wife, I'm a mother, I'm an author,
goodness.
and
She
I
does it
also do
all.
some admin work for my husband because he's
Oh,
self-employed.
yep.
So I guess them four jobs. So yeah, I've got all the hats.
You're wearing all the hats as a lot of women do.
I've got a lot of hats. But I guess I've always been into creativity. When I graduated
Yeah.
high school, I completed a diploma.
Yep.
Diploma was in creative writing, photography, film, and TV.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
That's
absolutely
broad.
loved. Uh, Books were my thing, but
Yep.
I really struggled either finding a book growing up that I could get into, or I did struggle reading.
Mm-hmm.
Like most, I had trouble spelling, and then the teachers are like,
Mm.
read more, read more. But when you're having trouble understanding a book or the words, you're like, well, this is boring, and
Yep.
you kind of lose interest.
Yep.
Um, so movies became my thing, and growing up in my household, it was, the weekends was the whole family watching movies.
Yeah.
Um, Single mother who took me to the video shop and I got my 7 weeklies for $10
Video
and
shops.
the video shop,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Back
Your
when they were
generation.
VHS. um, and that was my jam. So I fell in love with stories that way.
Yes. Yep.
And
Yep.
I
I love
fell
that.
in love with escaping your world, your life, to go into that world of the couple falling in love or the
Yeah.
cheerleaders dancing or
Yeah.
the geeky girl getting with the jock.
Yep.
It was a lot of that. So I love storytelling. Uh,
Absolutely. I can see that as well, particularly
yeah.
with romance. So I'm guessing even like the movies that you just listed before, even though not by name, I can tell there's probably a heavy, focus on romance, which is
Oh,
seeped
definitely.
into your writing. Yeah, yeah.
Definitely. And
Mm-hmm.
you watch the films that your parents love because they want to sit there. So, I grew up
Yeah.
watching Dirty Dancing and
Yep.
Grease and
Yeah.
all those movies where all the inappropriate stuff went over your head when you're a kid. But you just sit there going, oh wow, like
Yeah, that's so
look
nice.
at
Oh,
the
they're
yeah.
so cool. And the characters were so cool. And I think also, especially with Grace, there's a big musical element as well. So that's
Amazing.
enchanting. Yeah,
But
yeah.
but yeah, so the dream was to always one day work in that field. It started as let's be an actress, and
Yeah.
then I could never memorize lines, so I was like, not gonna
Oh,
work.
it's tough. Oh my God. I don't know how people do
I
it.
didn't mind putting on a show, but I could never remember any lines. So I was like,
Yep. No, it's hard. It's so
it's
hard.
hard. I don't know
Yeah.
how they do it.
No.
So then I tried, the directing thing, and through high school, you found me walking around with a video camera, just filming everything.
Yeah, that's
I'd
so
film my
cool.
friends at high school. I'd put on little skits. I'd make all these when I had assessments in school. I'd be like, can I film it and hand it
Yeah.
in as like
Video
a video
response.
commercial or something, and
Awesome.
they let
Yeah.
me do that. So
That's great.
yeah, I
So
tried
cool.
that, but then I graduated uni and they're like, oh, you have to work for free.
Yeah. It's crazy. The creative industry expects so much from people
Yeah, you got to
just
work your
trying to,
way up.
yep, yep. It's
Yeah.
about who you know as well. And
Mhm.
nepotism is rife,
Yeah.
unfortunately, when it comes to this stuff. And trying to break it in a creative industry, unfortunately, you do have to sacrifice, I don't know, some economic stability to
Yeah.
get so far. And it's
Yeah.
so hard to make it in the world. So you must have felt like it was a struggle.
It was. And at that time, I had been with my now husband long enough that we were looking at getting married, buying a
Yeah.
house. And I couldn't be like, oh, Harry, I'm just going to work for free now. I had to, be like, okay, I need help. So I went into like insurance.
Yep.
I went into
Something
what
to
do you
pay the
call it?
bills.
Reception work. I
Yep.
even put in real estate and
Oh.
attempted on the side like a bit of a photography career as well, working two jobs.
Yep.
But again, that became a
Yeah.
bit of a struggle. And
Such a
again,
struggle.
you got to find your own clients, which is fine, but
It's
it takes
hard. Oh,
time.
yeah. Yep.
Time was against me.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
um,
Yep.
so yeah, so
Mm.
in between working those reception jobs, I was writing.
There you go. So that's where
Yep.
it
I was
started.
sitting at my desk when the day was quiet, all the work had been done. I pull up a Word document and off I went because
Starting.
writing was always something I also wanted to achieve. But it
Yeah.
was finding the right story or finding the time.
The time.
So yeah, so that was on and off for two years
Wow.
and could never finish a story. It always got to like that climax, and then I was like,
Mm-hmm.
where do I take my characters from here?
It's hard. So
It was hard.
hard. Yeah. So would there be a particular word count that you would get to and then that would reach like the climax and you're like, oh my God, I don't know where to go from here, sort of thing? Or
I never
yeah.
even looked at word count. Even to this day, when I write a book, I never look at word count. I
Yep.
just go with the flow. So
Yep.
it would it would get to this point where I guess I would break my characters, and then I'd be like, how do I put them back together?
And that's
Without rushing
hard.
it, without giving them that fair
Yeah.
time to heal type
Yep.
of thing.
It's
Yeah, that's
complex.
where I got stuck. Yeah.
And I think probably it does take time in your own practice not to rush that kind of thing as well, like taking years to sit on the story, come back, take some time away from it. I'm guessing that's something that you employed before you got back into some of those things, or maybe they never saw the light
Well,
of day again.
the first story I was writing was male female, and
Yep.
as I guess I'm now a male author purely.
Hmm.
Um, and the story I was writing probably had a little too much of myself in it, as you always do
Interesting.
when you first write a story. And I
Yeah.
think that's also why it was a bit hard to keep going
Yeah.
because I was like, well, how much of this is me? How much is are people going to read it and go, this is her? Because I didn't want that to be the
Mm.
case. There was a lot that happened that had nothing to do with me, but it was
Hmm.
just this world that I was creating.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, and so I just stopped. Time, you know, moved on. Life became busy, and then COVID happened.
Yes.
Here we
And the
go. The
world
story I think
slowed
most
down.
indie authors bring up, but COVID happened, and I
Yeah.
was a new mum with a little 3 month old
Oh
stuck at
my
home.
goodness. Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Hubby could still work. So I was by myself with no one who could visit, no one who could help.
Oh, geez.
And
Yeah.
I found writing as a way to just relax, have time
Yeah.
for myself. And that's how Be My Saving Grace started.
And that's a
Mm.
perfect title. That's a perfect title to probably explain what you went through as well,
Yeah,
because I can imagine that was tough. Just
it,
having a little
it was very tough.
little
Yeah.
baby and no one can visit. And I think a lot of people, you're based in Victoria, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in the southeast Melbourne. Yeah.
Yes, Southeast Melbourne, me too, me too. So we had it pretty bad with the
We did.
lockdown. And
Mhm.
for me, I'm not sure whether, and I won't go into this in case it's too much for some people to listen to, but, I think the worst part was like a radius cap on how far you could travel. And that was just so difficult for people to navigate, how far you could get around and all that stuff. And I really feel for new mothers and new parents in particular about this kind of stuff because it was so constricted. And I'm really glad that writing became a saving grace. That was
It
incredible.
did. I mean,
Yeah.
I was also really lucky that my firstborn was a good sleeper because I
Oh,
was
so
up
good.
1 a.m., 2 a.m. writing, knowing he'll sleep through till 6 or 7 and I'll still
Oh,
get sleep
amazing.
to function. So yeah, it was really good. His naps, he'd go down, I'd jump on the computer and start writing. He'd go down at night and I'd be on the computer and my husband's like, you
You watching?
want to watch TV together? And I'm like, no, you relax.
Oh, that's a dream. I hope I get one like that eventually.
Yeah, we've
Oh,
got a good system now. He knows
yeah.
Monday to Thursday, I'm out. Like pretend I'm not even home once the kids
Yep.
are asleep. And then on the weekends, watch a movie,
Yeah.
play a board game, whatever.
That's
Like,
awesome. So that's part of
yeah.
your routine because that's what another question I was going to ask is what a day in the life looks like or a week looks like for yourself. And you kind of answered that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So it's obviously being a mum, being a wife, getting all that stuff sorted. And
Yeah.
I've got my youngest is still home some of the days.
Yep.
So those days I might, jump on, do some admin.
Yeah.
If I'm lucky to do a little bit of editing, because that's something you can pick up, put down quite easily.
Yes. Yeah.
Or when he's napping, if it's a story that's not too complex, I'll jump on, write
Just get on there.
couple of hundred words.
Yep.
But otherwise it's the days that I'm home by myself, that's the days
Strictly.
I write.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And I think what I am impressed by, I don't have children myself, but that what is something that I would love to venture into. But I'm so impressed with all the authors that I've met that have children as well that manage their time to be able to pursue their passions, and
Yeah.
self-publishing in particular does allow for that with the accessibility of being able to, it's not easy, I can imagine, but it's also still possible and you're able to, achieve your dreams, to put it not so lightly, but it is something that is achievable and accessible from the comforts of your own home, and you can work it around motherhood, and it's
It
busy.
is. And I think if you've
Yeah.
got a deep enough passion to make this work, you will sacrifice a few things to get there
Yep.
because
Like
like
sleep.
any job that you start, especially a self-employed job,
Yeah.
you need to put in the hard yards at the start to
Yeah.
make it easier later on.
Absolutely. You don't see things straight away from the
Mm,
get-go. It's a slow burn, to put it like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of learning, a lot of mistakes, a lot
Yeah.
of, yeah, you learn from mistakes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I met some people that
Yep.
helped me on my self-publishing path, use
Yes.
Ingram and this is how Ingram
Yes.
works.
The
And because,
community.
everyone's like, do I do Amazon or do I do Ingram? And
Yep.
there's issues with both of them.
Yes. Yes.
So, it's talking to the right people to then
Exactly.
that you can
But
trust.
talking. Yeah,
Yeah.
and trust as
Yeah.
well. But there's very few people that I feel like don't in this community on Bookstagram, if I'm just referencing that, that aren't sorry, are willing to help you. I feel like very few people will turn you away from asking questions or, I remember asking you one time, or we were talking about something to
Yeah.
do with like motivation because I was still struggling with some stuff, and you said, just
Yeah.
take your time and go for it, and it just goes to show that I think people want to help others succeed because it helps all of us. It really does.
Exactly. I mean, I always say to people that want to start writing or, how do I keep writing and believe it or not, the advice I give them was advice given to me by a celebrity. Um,
There you go.
yeah, I
Interesting.
name drop. Oh my God. I can't believe I'm doing it. It was just Comic Con. It was Comic Con, because I'm a big geek that way. And I was
Yeah.
having dinner with Ian Bowen. If
Oh,
anyone watches Yellowstone, he was in
oh
that.
my
Um,
goodness.
and
Gee.
he writes scripts, and at the time before I started books, I was attempting to write a script.
Yep.
Um, and so I was just talking, getting advice, blah, blah. And he told me, he said, write every day. And he said,
Love that.
don't set a time limit, set a word limit. Because if
Okay.
you go, I'll write for an hour, and then you get stuck on a word, or you have to Google some information, or you procrastinate, the hour ends and you're just like,
Oh
well, I've
well.
sat for my hour, done. But if you say, today, it's 100 words a day for the first week, no matter what. You do that and you just get in a flow. And if that 100 words takes 3 hours to write, so be it. But you've written your 100 words.
You hit your
And
quota.
then the other advice that I give that isn't from anyone, I've just learned that it's the best way to push through, edit at the end.
Yep. Yep. I'm
Yeah.
like that.
When you write and then you log back in the next day and you want to read over your work and you start editing, you're done for, because every day you are getting better at your craft.
Yeah.
And so what you wrote yesterday is probably maybe not as good as what you're going to write today or tomorrow. And
Improving.
if you're constantly going back and re-editing, you're just losing time. You just
Yeah.
whole thing out, go back and edit from the beginning. And then if your writing is better to what it was at the beginning, then you fix that. And then you'll find
Absolutely.
that the start of the book matches the end of the book because your writings just come together. So
I
yeah.
think that's incredible advice, and I agree with that. I'm like that. And what I will do usually, look, I'm at a point in this book that I'm writing where I'm like, oh, I'm hoping everything links up and I've explained what I need to explain. But I'm at the point where it's like, I just want to write the idea that I've got next coming
Yeah.
up with this scene. I'm just going to do it. I've got time to edit. I'm going to, after I finish it, which I don't know when that will be. Well, I do have a time limit actually because it will be going to the editor, to Hummingbird.
Yes, good
Yeah,
on Laura. Woo!
Laura, we love you, Laura. Hopefully you're going
Shout
to watch
out.
this one. Shout out to Laura. But I think I messaged her just recently saying I cannot move mine to December because, yeah, I need to give myself some time because there is a launch for my other uh, debut full-length novel coming out in April. So I got to focus on that, which is another thing too that us indie authors have to be mindful about timings and things like
Mm.
that. So I can imagine that that's one of the harder parts about your job and the writing as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
with the
Roughly,
marketing.
look, roughly a book, a good chunky book takes me, I'd say probably 6 months from writing to edits. And I give my book 2 edits. I like to just edit once, reading in my head, fixing grammar, words, all that kind of stuff. And then I do a read out loud edit. And I read my book to myself out loud to see how the words flow, sentences make sense.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people where I hate if I've used the same word really close together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, that's too repetitive. I need a
Too
different word
repetitive.
or
Yeah, you're
something
good
like
at picking that up
that.
because I don't.
But, um, I mean, look, Be My Saving Grace got a re-edit because the editor I had when I had the publisher, it was shocking. It was actually
Okay.
embarrassing when I looked back on it, and I was like, I can't believe the
Right.
money I paid for that.
Oh, I do
Um,
that too.
but it was so much pressure. Like I had to
Mm.
edit 148,000 words in 10 days with a
Wow.
newborn who had chicken pox
Oh my
at the time.
goodness.
And they're like, well, that
Oh,
doesn't matter. You need to finish it. And I'm like, otherwise we
that's
charge you. And I'm like, oh my Lord. So
gee.
then when I met Laura and I said to her, I said, this has been edited. I've edited it again. And now I'm sending it to you. Um, I was actually her first client and she did just a phenomenal job. And since then, I'm like, you're never getting rid of me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen that you've worked with her. I was recommended to her from SK May. Shout out
Yep.
to Simone as well, who we love to
Mhm.
mention here. But I haven't looked back as well, and I've only had one experience really with the book that I've just
And
about
that's
to
what
release.
us indies need. We need people who we can trust. So if we find an editor who understands our voice,
Yeah.
changes it for the better, but keeps it to make it seem like it still flows as if we've written it. The last thing you want to do is hand a book to an editor, come back and see all these red marks and be like, well,
Yeah.
that's not even my words anymore,
Well, that's right too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the voice has to be consistent, and Laura does a great job of keeping the voice consistent
She does.
there. And I love
Yeah.
that too because it gives you a chance to learn as well. Well, in particular for my stuff is that there was a lot of stuff to do with point of view, character point of view, which I'd like to ask you a little bit more about that with
Mm.
changing points of view in particular. But I was writing, and my book is set in third person, but there are different characters that can't, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, no one writes in third person.
That's so funny. Yeah, so you're the same, right? You're a
I
third
write
person
in
person.
third
Yeah.
person, and
Mm-hmm.
I have had negative reviews because I write in third person.
That's
Because it's either
crazy.
been hard for people to like get into, or some have gone,
Hmm.
oh, you do more telling than showing. And I go, but you understand
Okay.
with third person that changes the rules, that
It
changes
does
the rules of
change.
writing. You're like,
Yes.
I'm a narrator. You're reading from a narrator's point of view.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Negative
yeah.
reviews because of that. And I wonder if there is an overall preference for readers in particular. Maybe not with writers. I'm not sure what people prefer to write in. I'm guessing it would be first person from what
Look,
your
I've spoken
observation
to a
is.
few that say, third person would be so hard for me to write in. And yet I'm here going, first person would be hard for me to write
Yeah.
in.
Yep. Yep.
And then I think it's because romance is first person. That's
Yeah.
what I've gathered. So for someone to pick up a
Mm.
romance that's in third, it's been a little jarring, but that's
Interesting.
all I've ever known to write in third person,
Well,
It's kind of also what
yeah.
you're taught.
Yep.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
when I went to uni, never once did they mention doing first person and things like that. And it just
Mm.
there's nothing against it. It just changes the rules. And I think readers need to
Mm.
also know that it changes the rules so that when they
Yeah.
open the book, they go, okay, I can expect this, this, this.
Yeah, to be prepared because it is going to be like that. So, with your books, do you usually okay, so there will be a romance between the two characters
Mhm.
and it will continue to swap between the two? No, it just follows one.
So
Yep.
my most recent little one
Oh, yes, thank
is
you. I'll
the,
put a photo there too. Yep, little one.
that's the only one that I've released so far that did have a dual point of view.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Nice.
and I've done it before when I've just written for myself, but
Yeah.
that particular story really did need to get into the mindset of both because you were dealing with a dominant and a submissive, um,
Mm.
two very different mindsets. One had been in the world for a very long time, and one had just joined the world.
Mm.
So we needed to see how a dominant reacts, thinks, feels, and then vice versa with the submissive. So
Mm.
that there were chapters that were just purely started from that point of view, ended in that point of view, then you move on and vice versa. And I think there was only, I'd say maybe two or three chapters where they swapped in the middle, but I just put
Interesting.
like asterisks in the
Yep.
middles to indicate that this is a change of point of view.
Yep.
But otherwise, no, I stick to the one. So see you again, be my saving grace, my new one that's coming out soon,
Oh,
uh, all from the
exclusive.
one point of view.
Yep.
And I just use dialogue when I need to hear from that other character.
Yep, yep, I
Yeah.
love that. I think that's a great practice and approach to what we were just discussing there about. Well, I think with the dominant and submissive characters, that's when having a dual point of view makes sense, in
Yeah,
particular of what you're writing, because they're polar opposites, and that's
very
how.
much.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it was very much a book for people too that might know nothing about that
yeah,
world.
yeah.
I wrote it almost as though it was teaching my character, but also teaching readers because
Mm.
the amount of times I've read a BDSM book and I'm like, no, no, or they constantly bring it back to trauma. I'm like,
Ah,
it's not. It's like it
mm.
can be in a big
Hmm.
way, but it's not. You don't have to be a trauma victim to need this in your life or want this
Yeah.
in your life.
Yep. Yep.
So that's also
Mm.
what I was trying to portray in Little One a little bit.
Yeah, breaking some misconceptions around that world. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
very
great
much.
to hear.
And I had people message me going, I had read BDSM before, enjoyed it, but still didn't really know. And then I read Little One and now totally get it. And I was like, you're welcome. Like, thank
Yeah.
you. And
Yep.
the misconception of the term daddy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are
Yeah,
so many people who are
yeah.
like, that's an ick, that's an ick, oh my God. And I was like, I get it. Like you don't have to like it.
No.
But if you're interested to know why it's used and here you
Well,
go.
if you're not interested in BDSM as well, then the books, you can take a step back from those as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm learning as well with the romance genre, and it is something that I don't write in, but my observations of it is that it's so great how there are so many different genres that cater to the interests of what people want out there and knowledge around BDSM. And I'm sure you've got opinions as well as one book that I'm thinking of, the grey one. Yes, yes,
I
that
read
did.
them all.
Yep,
I read them
yep.
all. I watched the movies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yes, there were elements which I can understand made people swoon and be like, yeah,
Mm.
no. And you never want to knock a fellow author and or anything like that,
Yep.
but
Some
there was a
issues,
little
isn't there?
misconception and some
Yeah.
issues. And when they came out, the amount of people that were like, I want that.
Yeah.
I I'd be into that. And I'm like,
But would you? Do
maybe
you
with a
not?
feather.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it's
that kind
interesting.
of thing. And yeah, so that's
Mm.
like
There's a
it's very much
spectacle about it that I think
yeah,
people are intrigued by. Like the average person, I'm sure that's why the movies were, well, in particular. I know the books were successful too, but when they turned
very
into
much.
films, it was
Yeah.
like this shock, oh my goodness kind of thing. But the discourse that I saw about it, and I tend to agree, is that and this is my limited knowledge about the topic, but with BDSM and writing about it in particular, you've got to be very purposeful about what you're writing because you want to make sure that you're getting it correct and it's not just a place to, as you said, let out the traumas and
Which
things like that.
Christian had,
Oh,
that's
yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yep.
He went into that world because of trauma.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so there you
It's
go.
an interesting
Um,
character, doesn't it? As in,
yeah,
like, yeah, I think that raises a lot of issues with talking about that kind of stuff. But yeah,
it was.
yeah.
But yeah, look, and what I also find interesting about those books, which again, some people knew, some people didn't, was that it came from fan fiction. Um, it came
That's
from
right.
Twilight fan fiction.
That's right. It's all
And
coming
when
back
you
to me now.
think of Bella and Edward, and then you look at how Christian and Anna kind of reacted, you go, I can pick up the similarities in just their
Mm.
persona and how they held themselves.
Yep.
Which nothing wrong with that, but it's fun pointing that out to people.
Mm. Mm.
And then seeing the connections, but then also going, okay, but now you need to understand this world a little bit too. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
do. And I think it's important to have that knowledge there because it is a world that from the outside looks shocking,
Yeah.
looks intense. And yeah,
Yeah.
there are elements that are, but the
Mm.
rules have to be explained and it has to be delicate and it has to be reinforced that this is, consent is another one too, a big part of it. And I
Mhm.
think in romance novels and in particular, I think we've come a long way with character development and this kind of stuff. But it's good to see that there's a lot of progressive elements in the stuff that you're writing in particular that do cater to what people want with BDSM and male romance and things like that in the indie world. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's great. I didn't ask you actually about what encouraged you to start writing. I know we talked a little bit about like where you were with when you started writing like the drafts, so you were at work and all that stuff. But was there any sort of like catalyst or like a compulsion where you're like, I need to write something. I need to get this out and all that kind of stuff.
Uh, Gosh, not really. I was just dabbling at the time in like prompts. So on Tumblr, people put up like writing prompts
Yep.
and I was just dabbling in that and using characters that already existed to try and like just dive into a world straight away and be like,
Nice.
fuck out. Like, there's this great 100-word drabbles on
Oh,
Tumblr where they'll give you like a little prompt and you got to fill that in 100 words and that's it.
wow.
So that's a great way to like just
Prompts.
get you out of a
Mm.
slump and everything. Like it could be as simple as candles. So you got 100 words to try and fit candles into something to do with a couple and
Ah.
yeah,
Yeah, you
make it
can take
feel
it from there.
special in a way. But
Yeah.
no, I just picked it up because I needed a hobby
Yep.
while I was at home. I do a lot of different, coloring,
Mm.
scrapbooking, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah. You're
I
a creative
started with,
person. Mm.
yeah, I needed a bit more of an outlet. So
Yeah.
writing I picked up, and
Love it.
particularly with Be My Saving Grace, I always go back to a dear friend who has bipolar and was admitted during COVID into a
Mm.
psychiatric ward.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah,
That's tough.
so she is uh overseas and time zones, it worked really well because she was up at night. She could only have access to her phone, no visitors, no pencil, no paper, no nothing. Like that's all she
Really?
had.
Oh,
So is me awake with a kid in the middle of the night, or just, when she can't sleep, I'm up because of time zones. And we were just chatting
yeah.
and I said, can I use some of this story? Like,
Yeah.
she
Mm.
really wanted people to get an inside look at what it was like, and she absolutely was like, go for it.
Wow.
It was also one of the reasons why I made my characters male, but at the time
Mm.
too, I was stepping more towards that, like TV shows and movies and books I was reading. I was more leaning towards the male romance. I think it's a very important time, especially now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to shine light on the LGBT community, the LGBT relationships, and it's nice to see a little bit of vulnerability in men, I'm going to
Yep.
say,
Mm-hmm.
personally,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it is there. And I think that can sometimes get washed away when you do male female because you keep that man so
Mm.
macho or so, the typical jock, cocky
Yes.
thing. Um,
Yeah.
and the focus is more on like the strong female lead or the damsel in distress.
Mm.
All fantastic
Mm.
tropes.
Yep.
Um,
They're
but
in their
I was
place.
like, let's mix it up.
Yep.
Let's make these men a little bit vulnerable who have gone through some tough times, because how do
Mm.
they come from that? How do they,
Mm.
when society's like, boys don't cry and you need to be tough, and sexual assault can't happen to men, and it's like, well, actually it
Mm.
can, and
Oh, it
it
most
does.
certainly can.
And
Yep.
so
Yeah.
there were some very tough topics, and sorry, content warning,
Mm-hmm.
um, trigger warnings. But yeah, there were some tough topics I delved into with Be My Saving Grace.
Mm. Yep.
And then when it came to the bipolar element, how someone feels with bipolar, how the medication makes them feel, what can happen to them if they're not medicated, what can happen to them, um,
Serious.
all of that
Yep.
uh, came from, yeah, talking to my dear friend.
Yeah, and I think there's a important place for talking about serious romance, and I maybe that's not the right term for it, but with romance we think about lightheartedness and happiness. But
Yeah.
yeah, with romance, there's so much depth to it as well, and the feeling of being in love is, or confusing feelings about love are complicated and can
Mm,
be heartbreaking. And so
mm,
I think your books are touching on a place, a darker place that people want to, there's a space for it where people want to read about some serious stuff. And yeah, there's a place for the fun romantic reads, and I'm sure your books have
absolutely.
that too, where there's some great parts to it. But why not talk about all facets of life where there
Yeah.
are some struggles that the human
Yeah,
condition goes through? So it's
yeah,
really exciting
definitely.
to
And
hear that.
I I not stepped out of my comfort zone, but I
Mm.
tried something a little different in terms of that with book two, because book
Yeah.
two, See You Again. deals with a character starting in therapy. That's like the very first
Ah,
thing.
it's the
He's in
opening
therapy,
spot. Yep.
the opening spot, and you have no idea why until you keep reading because it's a back and forth, present past type of situation. So it
Mm.
dives, 12 months forward, he's in therapy. And as you read each chapter, you're going back a
Piece
12
things
months,
together.
11 months, 10 months, and you're seeing this life that he lived unravel to the point of needing therapy. Yeah.
Wow, in the space of 12 months. Did you find that, I'm guessing, as you said before, it was a challenge to write, a back and
Very much.
forth?
This
Yeah.
I was so proud of this book because I could already tell my writing had improved since Be My Saving Grace.
Yeah.
I could tell that the the way I needed to connect the past to the present,
Oof.
I needed to make sure that my character had changed enough. And in the past, you could see him changing to who he is now in the
Yeah,
present. It was a lot.
that's
My
amazing.
my beta reader was constantly like crying.
Oh, my
Like
God. What are
she was
you doing?
crying and she was like, "This writing is amazing," or she was crying, going, "What are you doing to me?" Like my poor character. And I was like, "It's
Can't figure
okay.
it
It's
out.
okay." Like my books come with happily ever afters, everyone. Disclaimer. But yeah,
Wow.
I put her through the ringer with that one.
What are you
But I
doing
was
there?
so proud of it. I was so proud of it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's such an achievement because I look at that and I hear you talk about that thinking, oh my God, could I ever do that? I don't think I could do
yeah,
that. But you did
I
it.
was I did do it. And I was surprised at how quickly I didn't think it was going to be quick, but I really stuck down with that. And I think too, because it was
Yeah.
one of those books where I couldn't really stop it.
Yep.
So when I sat down, I had to sit down and focus because it was just so mentally uh
It was a lot, probably.
it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're a lot. They're heavy, but
Heavy.
they come from a good place. Look,
Yeah.
it's not even like my main character who Riley, he's a twin with his twin sister, and it's more so the issues is because their father has an opioid addiction.
Right.
So
Mm.
it's not so much uh it's what's happening to Riley because of that family trouble.
Hmm.
And just he finally meets his soulmate. It is a soulmate love because it's that
Mm.
instant I found someone, and he's a
Yeah.
character that had just stopped looking, not interested in the in just the flings and everything. He just wanted to find that someone because his
Mm.
mom and dad had that relationship. So he's like, I want what my parents had.
Yep.
Um, and
And other
yeah, and
things.
he
Yeah.
finds love only for home to just turn to crap.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's so interesting
And
hearing
then what do
about
you do?
that.
Do you keep your partner around and let them suffer with you? Or do you give up love and be like, I have to deal with this and you shouldn't be involved and yada yada
Oh,
yada. So that's the
it
turmoil.
happens in real life. That is something that mimics where you can't help, you love the person, but all the baggage that comes with it, which is not their fault, is
Mm.
something that you are brought into, whether you like it or not, so to speak, but there is a choice. Do you
Yeah.
stay with the person to go through that kind of stuff? And I think that's important to talk about because yeah, there are romance books out there that lightly touch on some heavier topics, but I do like to see when there's some even heavier stuff in there. So that's really exciting for book two. So when was book two released? Was that in 2024, middle 2024?
Yeah, that was August 2024 that one came out.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and then November I pumped out Little One. So it was really close together, those two. But
Just meant
it
to
was
be.
because Little One had actually already been written. I wrote it.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting.
I
Yeah. Okay.
wrote a very shorter version as a birthday present for my beta.
Oh my God, your
Yeah.
beta has been very well treated
Oh,
slash gone
she
through the
works
ringer.
hard. She works so hard that I just
Yeah.
like
Wow, you're
what can
so
I give you?
good. So
Um
if you be
I
Rachel's
wrote
beta,
yeah.
you never know what you can
That was a
get.
gift for her.
Oh, wow.
And she turned to me and she's like, "You have to publish this." And I was like, "Mm, mm."
This was your gift, but
I'm like,
hey.
I don't know if the world can handle that topic.
Wow. She gave you the
And she's like,
blessing.
"No." Yeah, she's like, "You have to." So I went back in, I added another 20,000 words. I dived just a little bit more into the world. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why that one was kind of ready to go. And I was just like, all right, I'll do it.
We're doing it.
I'll
Yeah.
do it.
And that's
Mm,
the beauty of being a self-published author. It's your own timeline. And you'd already
yeah.
done the hard work. You had the blessing of who the recipient was of the gift. And
Hmm.
now it's everyone's gift where we've
Yeah.
seen it be released into the world. And did you feel that your writing had improved again after the second book, The Saving Grace? What do you
The
think?
writing, it's such a different style between book two and book three. So
Mm.
I don't know if necessarily the writing had improved, but perhaps the emotions and
Mm.
the way the narrator, I guess, has to explain things. But
Yeah.
yeah, they were so completely different worlds that I don't think I could sit there going, "Oh yeah, there was improvement."
Yeah, it
Um,
was just different.
yeah, it was just different. But and again, my next book that's coming out, which goes to my editor next month in March.
Okay,
So it's
Laura.
not far. I've got a front
Okay.
cover, I've got artwork that's been
Oh,
delivered. So
ooh, that's
but
exciting.
it's a rom-com. So
Oh, we've taken a turn. We've taken another turn. I love it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm like, I've tortured my readers enough. Let's give them something fun,
it's
which was
time.
so I can't believe how much of a challenge it was for me to write this rom-com. And it wasn't because I can't write rom-coms, I don't think. I
Hmm.
had no problem writing it. But I was reading it going, is this good? It's just so fun and fluffy and like, there was not an angsty moment in my, oh, there might be like a 10% angst moment, but I was just like, this is, and again, I'm sending it to my beta and she's like, I need more of them.
She
And I was
loved
like,
it.
okay,
You can
all
do
right.
both. You can do
Yeah,
both. Yep.
if that's what people want. So that was
Interesting.
a lot of fun because
That's a
it's just
pivot.
yeah, it was a big
Mm.
pivot. But in saying that, it's because my next one's going to destroy everyone. So
Oh, you're already planning with the next one. Oh, you're giving everyone a break. Giving
I'm
everyone a
giving everyone a
break.
break. I'm like, let's give them something fluffy
Yeah.
because my next one is just going to be
Is it devastating?
step.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, wow. Well, as I just, we talked about before, there's a place for both
Yeah.
of them. And romance is your main genre. Let's
Mm.
see all the diverse types of romance out there. So will it be a male-male romance rom-com? Is that right? Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, it is.
And that,
It's
mm,
rom-com, it's fake dating, it is nerd and playboy.
yeah,
So I'm it's frenemies, and that's what was fun, the frenemies part. So they
yep.
weren't exactly enemies, but they were just like, I can't believe I'm stuck
That's
with you
really
type of thing,
how
like
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was it was a good thing to play on.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Do you think the friends to and friends to um enemies to
Enemies to lovers.
lovers? Yes, is that your favorite trope too, right? Or are there other
Believe it or
ones?
not, friends to lovers
Yeah.
is my favorite. I
Yep,
love a good friends to lovers. And I
me
think that's
too.
because enemies to lovers needs that a really good like reason why they're enemies. And
Yes.
that build up to make them lovers needs
Oh.
to like really grab me. I guess a lot of people throw in that whole oh they hate bang one another and then that
Mm.
kind of causes the love to adapt. Always fun to write and read, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy that I've already got a connection with you
Yeah, me too.
and then it becomes like something more. And I think
Yeah.
that also that possibly might play on the demisexual
Mm-hmm.
label. Yeah, that we anyone who's a demisexual needs a connection with a person before they can do anything sexual with them. And so I
Mm.
think that also plays a lot into the friends with to lovers trope that I
Yeah.
like to establish. Yeah.
Yeah, I like writing about that with my characters as well. That
Mhm.
though I haven't, I mean, I'm probably more into the stricter fantasy, and romance is just like a sprinkling in my writing. But when I do write romance, I think I prefer to get them starting as amicable,
Yeah.
and there's something in common that I can build on a little bit more. Maybe it's
Yeah.
because I don't have all the time in the world to in the
Mhm.
storylines make them hate each other and do it right, as you said, where you there's got to be good enough reason to why the
Yeah.
characters hate each other. And I've read books that do it so
Mm.
well with that. And I think those writers, you keep doing that because I need to learn before I, yeah, hats off to
They are
you.
masters at it.
They
Yeah.
are, because I can't get there just yet. And romance in particular is something that I still feel like I'm a fair way off of hitting the nail on the head with that. But,
And see,
yeah.
that's how I feel about fantasy.
Oh
The people
yeah.
that can
Yep.
create worlds, I go, you're amazing. Like, what the?
It's
Like,
just
but
fun.
yeah, I love if I do love, I've read a few fantasies and really enjoyed them, but I struggle with names. So I
Oh
do one of those
yes,
people where I'm
yes.
like, blah, 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 blah,
Such and such's name and
yeah,
character this
I
and all that.
mumble it. So I kind of lose it a little bit because I'm like, where are we? Who's this? Because I
Totally.
haven't been able to pronounce it correctly.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, but a good fantasy is also, yeah, very enjoyable.
It's certainly, you do have to, I guess, sometimes be patient with it. And I understand when people go, no, this is not for me. And that's why the genre of romance, where it is in the real world, so to speak, I know it is like all books, I guess, are in the
Contemporary, yeah.
fantasy. Yeah, contemporary fiction is so popular and so much more accessible than having to remember the place names and things like that. So there's something there for everyone, and I can't wait to hear more about the next book that's coming out. So,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
excited about look, I'm
yeah.
excited about everything I write. Let's
Oh,
be
it's so
honest. You
good. You're
gotta
so
be.
passionate. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's
but yeah,
amazing.
this was yeah, it makes me smile just thinking of these two idiots. And I just go,
Oh,
oh my God, what am I? Yeah, yeah.
yep. Oh, well, good.
I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah.
I can't wait to see more about it. So we've got the cover sorted, and we've
Mhm.
got a few drafts done. So it's gone through the beta readers, and now it's onto the
Yeah,
editing stage. Do you
yeah.
think there will be a release date this year?
Oh, 100%. I am
Cool.
probably looking May or June.
Oh,
Or
wow.
yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
released a date yet because I do the formatting myself. So I got to wait till Laura's finished editing. She gets it back to me, and if she gets it back to me in 6 weeks' time, then I
Yeah.
know, okay, I can format it in X amount of days or weeks and whatnot.
Yeah,
And then I can
totally.
look at planning a release and sending out arcs and
Yep.
ordering a sample copy and all that stuff that we need time, us indie authors, to kind of
Yeah.
do behind the
There's a lot of
scenes.
time.
Whereas, the trads, they're like, yep, just pump it out. It'll be ready by this date type of thing.
Yeah, and there sometimes traditional publishing, the more that I look at it, the more intimidated I feel by the prospect of being if I ever was, which I'm actually quite happy to be an indie author for my own practice, but it does seem a bit intimidating, that world where it feels like a lot of the decision making is just out of your hands when it comes to timing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was yeah, when I was with the publisher, that was a bit of an eye opener.
Mm.
Even not having full say over your cover.
Yeah.
That was rough. Like
Yeah, that makes me a
I
bit
had
anxious.
feedback. Look, I was scared just to say no, as you are. You go, oh
Yep.
no, they know what they're doing. They're the professionals. Was absolutely nothing to what I suggested when they asked.
Hmm.
And yeah, I had feedback and people were like, oh, I thought it was a thriller based on your cover. And I'm like, no, it was a romance.
Oh my goodness.
Because of the type of text they use and the colors and the this and the that. So
Yep.
yeah, I really took that into account when I got it re-released. And the cover, I was so happy with the artist
Yeah.
for recreating Nicholas. and his tattoos, which have such an important meaning in the book.
And we'll put
Um,
that image there of the title is Be My
yeah,
Saving Grace. Is that right?
yeah.
For that one that we're talking
Yeah,
about?
that's been my
Yep.
saving grace. But
Yep.
then that's another thing, we say this is what I like, this is what I want, but it's not what the readers want.
No.
We get told readers don't like people on covers or they don't like illustrators. They want um uh stock images or something. They prefer discrete covers and all that kind of stuff. And I
Hmm.
go, okay,
But
so
what do you want, as the author?
exactly,
What do you
exactly. This
want?
is
Yep.
my book, and I want to represent it for what it is. And it's just, I guess, a little disappointing that the whole don't judge a book by its cover literally still happens to this day.
Oh yeah, and I think it's that thing will never go away. I will say that I
No.
think that it won't, and I think the personally, you don't have to be a designer or an artist as an author to know a important non-negotiable things that you want on the cover. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that there are a lot of indie cover creators as well that will work with you to make your vision come to life. And before I move on to maybe some talking about the other covers, I just want to visual describe audibly describe the cover of Be My Saving Grace, just in case people aren't watching this, because I will put
Yeah.
a photo of this. But we've got here, and I'm just looking this up on Goodreads. So we've got Be My Saving Grace in white text above a figure of a man who's facing away from us, and there's beautiful tattoos on his back, very detailed tattoos, and he's looking away, and there's a little window in the background shining some light onto a blue room, and then it's got your author title down the bottom there. And yes, it's definitely not a, it does have some dark elements that I can see from it, but it reads as romance to me because of the font in particular that was used. It's not a thriller, but I do see also the old cover on
Yeah.
Goodreads too, and I can
Unfortunately,
describe
it
that
pops
one
up
too.
some places. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's black and white and all these shards of, I don't know what it's meant to be. There's a figure, yeah, sitting
Yeah.
there.
It's almost, it looks like, I'd say like broken glass or
Broken
something, but I
glass.
think it's meant to be that the figure is breaking his
Yes. Yeah.
broken character, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks
Um,
a lot darker than
yeah.
what it doesn't read as romance. And the font
No.
is a bit of a letdown with that because
Mhm.
it's a looks like impact font for anyone that might know about that, just capitalized and in your face. So,
Mm,
romance genre. So, if I
yeah.
bring up also the next cover, I'm a bit of a cover nerd, not gonna
Oh,
lie.
don't worry. I love covers too. Yeah.
Yes. And then we've got the next one is See You Again. No, or is it? Yes, it is See You Again before Little One. Little One is the latest publication. Yeah, so with See You Again, very romantic. We've got the moon in the background. We've got a silhouette of two characters in the front, and See You Again is written in some gold font, very ornate font, and romance hit nails on it hits the nail on the head with the romance there. And then finally with Little One, that's when it does turn into a little bit darker, a little bit more, I guess, red, spicy, some
Oh,
red
yeah.
lights on two characters on a red couch,
Hmm.
and perfect. It talks about, because this is where it goes into BDSM.
Yeah.
So, your cover artist, did the cover artist design all three?
No, so cover one and two are the same artist. Cover three was a different one.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
cover three, yeah, I said let's get rid of faces.
Yep.
I don't like faces
Yeah.
because I want readers to picture them themselves.
Yeah.
If I pick up a book and there's already a face on it, that's who I picture,
Yep.
which is fine. But sometimes I'm reading and I was like, that's not who I pictured in my head. So if I put a body on the cover, I'm like, I don't want to see their face.
Yeah.
Silhouette, turn them around, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what? I broke my own rule because book four has faces. But
Yeah. But that's
to be
different.
fair though, it's and a little bit of a spoiler, it's a Polaroid of them. So kind of like
Ah.
someone's taken their photo and put it there. So So yeah, it's not exactly a model shot. It's
Yeah,
more of just a glimpse
a
of their
glimpse.
time together. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And I think I can see why both having no faces on it versus showing a little bit of an insight into what they might look like, still helpful. So
Mm,
I love that choice. I think that's
yeah.
done very successfully there. So
It was more
yeah.
so very much to shine light on the body's position because
Uh-huh.
that's very important. It was
Hmm.
showing you that little bit of a nervous character sitting there with a very strong, confident male
Yep.
um, taking charge. And yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that cover really did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's perfect and it's important, and covers are important, visuals are important too. So, do you find that you are making a lot of the decisions into the visuals and aesthetics for your own marketing on Instagram? And do you use TikTok as well?
Yeah,
Or,
I use
yeah,
TikTok and I am terrible at it.
me
If
too.
anyone wants to add me on TikTok,
I'll
because
find you.
I don't know how to really, I put the same content on there as Instagram, but how to make it be seen, it's who knows how that works.
You and me
Um,
both.
but yeah, so my artists, I do get art made for my book. So if anyone wants to buy my book directly through my website, there are options to buy them with art bundles. Some people are
Lovely.
into that. They love collecting. Some people just want the book. So I've got both options. But
Perfect.
my art that I get made is obviously going to have faces of the characters, and it's how I've pictured them, or um, a person that I've, visualized while writing. And I was like, well, manipulate it a little so it's not identical, but that's who I pictured.
Yeah.
So if people really want to see who I think Finn and Nicholas look like, or who I think Callum and Riley look like, it's in the artwork. There's
Yeah.
that there.
Amazing.
But yeah, I very much go to my artists and go, this is what I want. The only thing they come back with really is just questions on lighting or design
Yeah.
or font.
Different
But
options.
yeah, the rest of it they leave it to me.
Love that.
When I got my logo made, by design by Kate, she was phenomenal because I had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, she really went back and forth, and I was like, that's brilliant. Like
Yeah.
that's what we need
And
because
your
still
logo's the
walked
two
away with something
hearts.
that was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I walked away with something that was my brand. It wasn't, the something that you see with
Hmm.
every single other author or logo or whatever. And I was like, thank you,
Yeah.
because
Amazing.
it's sometimes you do need someone else's opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. And I think collaboration is the key when it comes to self-publishing, which that can be something that intimidates a lot of authors, indie authors that want to get out there and do everything themselves without the traditional publisher input. But the community that we have here, particularly at Bookstagram, I'm still not sure about the TikTok, book talk. With that
Yeah,
shares us between us two, where
that's a
I'm
hard
just not
one.
knowledgeable on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's so much collaboration that goes on. And if you need a cover artist, if you need an editor, if you need beta readers, if you need ARC readers, they're all out there too. And I found
Oh,
in
wow.
particular how amazing it is with ARC readers, how like enthusiastic these people out there that you don't even meet are about reading your book and wanting to engage with your book. That I just found that to be, in particular, the most exciting part of being an indie author. I'm sure that's your experience as well.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I haven't had much experience with ARCs
Hmm.
because obviously Be My Saving Grace I re-released, so I didn't bother
Yeah.
with that. See You Again, I did ARC signups, but I was so nervous of plagiarism that I
Yes.
only sent it out PDFs. So they were watermarked, they had locks and passwords, and a lot of people couldn't read
Yeah.
that because they read on ebooks and
Yep.
Kindles. I was like, oh no, I completely get it. So a few people had to pull out. And
Yeah.
then little one, I was like, no ARC readers, which
Yep.
affected me in a way. It took a long time to build up some reviews because
Mm-hmm.
it had lots of sales, but how many people do these days
Review.
actually leave a review?
Yeah.
I never left a review until I became an author. It
Yeah.
wasn't something I thought of, or
Me too.
like you
Yeah.
just picked up a book and read it. Like you didn't think it was an industry where people needed that.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't know about Goodreads or Amazon
Yeah.
reviews or anything. So I bought my books, I read my books, I put them on my shelf, and I moved on.
Yeah.
And now I'm an avid, like, that was great. Let that person know.
That's
Um,
important, everyone, as well,
it
who's
is.
listening to
It
this.
is.
Please give your
Even
favorite authors a review.
even if it's just some stars, if you can't think of words, we still very much appreciate
We
it.
do. We
Um,
do. Yep.
it goes a long way. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm one of those suckers that I'll go on and read every review. So if you've left me a good one, thank you so much. If you've
Yeah.
left me a bad one, I'm either cursing your name or I'm taking on the criticism.
You heard it here first. Watch out. No, but it's important. And I think um, healthy criticism is important too.
Oh
And I've
yeah.
always valued when people give their honest opinions, and it does make me excited. Like,
Yeah.
this might sound a little bit like weird, but I remember with the latest book that I published, like my first little short story, when I'd received some detailed 3-star reviews, and I was like, oh, someone took the time to like critique and
Yeah.
look at it and talk about things that were like, yes, good, yes, needs improvement. And it is very fulfilling as an author when you see things like that. Don't get me wrong, having 4-star, 5-star is like amazing, but those
Yeah.
also are special and
Mhm.
really like fulfilling. I think that's the
They
best
are.
word to
Yeah.
put it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it helps.
I
Yeah.
am I actually have a stalker troll who reads all my books and only leaves 1-star reviews and negative and like essays. And I'm like, well, you're buying my book at least, but they're just I'm like, if you didn't like the first two, why are you going with why do you
Oh,
keep
it's
reading me?
bizarre. That's
And yeah,
bizarre, isn't it?
they're constantly 1 star, blah 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 blah. And I'm like,
Wow.
did you read the
Well,
blurb? Like, why did you bother?
oh,
You just, yeah, yeah,
people are strange. There's some
yeah,
weirdos out there,
yeah.
and I think unfortunately when it comes to themes, I'm guessing I don't know about the stalker, but I'm guessing the stalker. The
Not a stalker. They're
sorry,
just,
not a stalker. They're
no,
just oh, they're troll, the troll.
yeah,
I'm
troll.
guessing because of the content where it is LGBTIQ plus
No,
and
that doesn't seem to bother them at all.
oh, oh.
Like, it's like the fact that Riley and oh well, it was so for Be My Saving Grace, the issue was, he was an orderly. And they felt like it was a power play. And I was like, but he wasn't a
Hmm.
doctor. He's got no control over
Hmm.
Finn's treatment. In Little One, they absolutely hated the little play. And I was like, well, maybe you didn't understand it or you shouldn't have read the
Yeah.
back. And they
Yeah.
didn't like the daddy element. I was like, again, did you read the blurb?
And you should step away from that
Yeah.
book if it's not for
Yeah,
you, pretty much.
exactly.
Yeah,
They
it's
just
yeah.
little things where us as authors, we just have to go, all right, whatever. But
Yeah,
you could read it when you're having a bad day and take it completely differently.
sure.
Um, you
We
could
don't
take
have
it
control
you
over
could
that.
take it when you're editing, so you're already in imposter syndrome and you're like, my next book's going to be shocking. And then you read this review and you're like, oh, what am I doing?
Oh, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's really
That
hard.
always steps in right
Yeah.
at a release date for me. When I'm formatting, I'm like, this is going to be terrible.
No,
Mm.
ignore that troll,
I
please.
know.
Forget about it. But it is
Yeah.
one of the risks with posting your stuff out there, It's
Yeah.
going to be out there for critique, but I think when it comes to the stuff that you want to write, continue to write it because you
Yeah.
can be, as the quote goes, the most delicious peach out there, but someone out there just doesn't like peaches, and you can't really change that about it.
Exactly that. I
So,
write for me first and then I write for everyone else. And I have a good following, which I'm
yeah.
really thankful for. So if any of you are listening or new readers are listening, like I appreciate every single one of you. And
Yeah.
whether I get a DM, whether I get a anonymous review, and I have no idea who you are, whether you rock up at my book signing and I've met you before or never met you, I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the most important thing. And I
Like
think you've got a lot of
you
people
you
on your side.
guys, you guys keep us going. Like we keep going for ourselves, but there are just days where it's like, can I keep doing this?
Yeah,
Like, and yeah,
keep it
you
alive
keep
with
it
it.
up
Yeah.
when someone's like, when's your next book? I'm like, oh,
So
okay.
much. Yeah, that's amazing. Before we
Yeah.
wrap up, I just want to quickly ask, where can people find you on your socials? I'm guessing Instagram and TikTok. Any other socials that you've got out there?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Bluesky, which is, the new Twitter. So it's quite fresh. There's not much on there because we're trying to build it up.
Yep.
I just joined Tumblr because I had a
Tumblr.
personal account on there, but I was like, you know what? Let's shove my author stuff on there as well. I'm on Facebook, so feel free to follow me there. And obviously my website, which is just
Website.
rachelO'Rourke.com.au. So
It's
yeah.
amazing. No, thank you so much for taking the time today to chat
Thank
about
you. I
everything.
could have kept talking, honestly. This was so
Oh,
great. Thank you.
hey, I could too, but I know I gotta let you get back to your important stuff. It is a Saturday, so that
Yeah,
means I'm sure there's lots of things to do around the place, but I really
unfortunately.
appreciate you being so open about some topics that are heavier. And yeah, I'll
Mm.
make sure to put that as well. I know you did say, yes, there's a content warning for some of your books out there too. Just keep that in mind for people listening and wanting to check out the books. Just keep
Yeah.
that in mind. But you've been amazing, Rachel. I really appreciate all your insights into your indie author life.
Thank you. Honestly, it was an honor when you reached out and you're like, can we have a chat? I was like, wow, I've made it big now. Thank you.
Well, I just love to chat. I love to yap. I love to learn what people have
Yeah.
to say. And it helps me with my creative pursuits as well.